Hello everyone, this is XWD, also known as X11 Window Dump, and lately I've been making mashups of Space Jam with various songs, so my main man Over wanted me to show how I did it, so this is what I do. Step 1, you want to remove the MIDI channels on the new project, then switch to the arrangement view and drop in your track. Now is a good time to lower the volume so you don't blow out your ears. You're going to want to adjust the downbeat so that it starts exactly at 0, otherwise the songs won't match up. You can turn on the metronome to help with this. Step 2. Go drop in Space Jam, do the same thing. Make sure they both start at 1. I know my copy has a tendency to have this like half beat, or Ableton thinks that there's an extra half beat at the start, so I gotta add that in every single time. I like to rename the tracks in Ableton Live so I can remember which one is which. In this case, the top one is Airbrushed, and the bottom one is Space Jam. I'm also fond of creating a third track, name it Scraps, and mute it. That way I can have the little extra bits of songs that I don't quite want to use right now, and just save them for later so that I don't forget that they exist. Okay, right now I noticed that things aren't sort of exactly matching up in terms of the main drop, so I'm making sure that they actually do line up. Yeah, now we're slamming with gas. Now I like to skip through the song a little bit and make sure that all the various parts of the song actually match up with Space Jam, you know, that the downbeats of the section changes match up. If they don't match up, you're going to have to do some editing, but I was pretty lucky with this one, and most of the time it actually lined up really nicely, so I was able to get this done pretty quickly. Okay, at this point I want to make sure that I get the endings to match up as good as I can so I can see how much of Space Jam I need to go put back in. So right here, I take a listen to the very first part, and I notice that there's this little build-up section that's not quite so great, so I go ahead and take that, drop that down into the scraps, and then copy over the first instance of Space Jam, or of Come On and Slam, have that loop twice. At this point I realize that I've made a bit of a silly mistake. I forgot to set Airbrushed to master in the warp settings under sample. You do that, and that'll make sure that everything automatically syncs up with it. You might have noticed that Space Jam sounded kind of crappy. You're going to want to change the sampling warp mode down in the lower left corner under sample. Right now it says beats. Ideally you want to go swap that over to complex. You should actually do this as soon as you drop the tracks, and I just kind of forgot that step. You can do it anytime you want. I actually show you how, if you forget to do it, you can just fix it anytime you want. So right now, I'm realizing this part's okay, but there's this gap here, and, you know, the point of the Space Jam mashup is that Space Jam is playing the entire time. So what you can do is go copy this one section here, and have it go play over the other part. And yes, I finally realized that I left the metronome on. The part where I realize that things have been kind of sounding a bit off, so I switch Airbrush over to Complex and then Space Jam over to Complex, and I realize, you know, I probably need to do this for all the samples, so you control it to select everything, switch it over to Complex, everything sounds nice. It's important to listen to your Slam Jam as you make it, you know, make sure everything sounds nice and good. If you notice there's anything that you need to make a change, well, that's why you're listening to it. Something I like to do to make sure that I can differentiate between the different parts of the song is to put in splits on the tracks to evenly divide them up, so, you know, you can see like, hey, I've got the verse here, I've got the hook here, I've got the chorus here. So that way I can easily tell which part is which if I want to rearrange them later. So an example of that, I'm copying over the first instance of the chorus and moving the second instance of the chorus over to fill up that last space that I noticed in the song. Now I'm thinking, hey, this sounds pretty good, you know? Then I decided I don't like it, so I move that chorus down to the scraps, minimize that to make room for more space, and I take, let's see, this part over here, which is the second instance of the hook, and I drop that in, and I think, you know, that's going to sound better, and it doesn't take up the entire time. And interesting thing about the second instance of the hook, it's got this part there, that part right there that I just went over. It's not quite as noticeable, but it drops out a little bit. Like the second instance of if you want to, the second instance of if you want to slam, it's kind of compared to the first instance, and it makes it sound like things are going to transition. And if you don't actually transition, it's going to sound kind of crappy. So what you do is you can go copy over that first instance, drop it over that second instance, bam! You can just loop that forever. That's sort of a trick you can do with basically any of the parts. If you notice that there's sort of a transition, or if J-Ski starts rapping on the pickup beat, or you can hear him start talking right before he talks, like right here. It's not good. You can just drop that. You can just adjust the clip and have it. Yeah, sounds a lot smoother. Now, right now, notice there's this little ha sound that the Airbrushed RAC remix does that I really like. And I want to have that be in my slam jam because it's a really cool part right before it kicks into that different part of the song. So I'm going to go add automation for the track volume. And, yeah, ha. And you just set points on either side, and then you can click and drag and up and move it over. Give it a little boost so that it sounds better when Space Jam is playing over it. Make sure you have the automation return the track volume to the level that you've got set previously afterwards, or otherwise it'll just crank up the volume for most of the track, and that's not good. Okay, now that we've got all the different parts of the songs lined up, it's time to move into the fun part, mastering. Step 1, you want to go switch over to the effects rack. I really like EQ8. This thing is like completely amazing. Generally what you want to do is on the song that doesn't have vocals, you want to have a cut at about 1.6K, just a little cut, and lower Q values sound pretty natural, but the default Q value here sounded pretty good. And I'm going to go toggle it. It's a bit effective. You can sort of hear how there's like a bit of a difference in terms of the audibility of the Space Jam vocals as opposed to when there wasn't. The track that does have vocals, once again, EQ8, but you basically do the inverse. You want to go drop a... Well, I like having a low-pass filter, but you want to drop a boost at about 1.6K, sort of the inverse, so that way that the vocals, 1.6 is the key vocal frequency, it comes out a bit. I tend to like putting a low-pass filter on Space Jam to make sure that you don't get any dissonance in terms of the beats. For this one, since the Airbrushed RAC remix doesn't have a whole ton of stuff going on in the low end, I figured, you know, it'd be fine if I just left it flat on the low end. Another important frequency to notch out on the song that doesn't have vocals is about 250 hertz. You can see I'm doing that right here on the EQ8. I'm going to have a bell, just drop it down a bit. And you see that's really helping the vocals come out. So, on a lot of songs that you want to slam, there's a lot of parts where there are no drums, but Space Jam has drums, sort of like what I have over here at the starting part. And, you know, it doesn't quite sound as good. And generally what I find you want to do there is you can do a wide variety of fun, cheesy Ableton Live filter effects. I'm going to go show you how to do a pretty simple high-pass filter real quick. One way to do that is you can have EQ8, you can have a low-pass filter added on top of that, and you can add automation for that. But, you know, that's kind of, it's not quite as fun to do. So you can drop in another EQ8. For convenience sake, I named this one high-pass filter. And you can see there's a high-pass filter here. To start with, you want to make sure that it's actually set to high-pass filter and not low-pass filter. And then you go set the frequency to something pretty high. And as you can see, because it's set to high, you're only going to get the upper parts of the frequencies, which in this case would be the cymbals. So that way, it doesn't really drown out the nice melodic part here. And you can see that when it transitions, it actually has some drum noises in there. So you don't just want the high-pass frequency to be there at the entire time, especially since you don't want it to be this tinny sounding while you're trying to have Space Jam going. So you can do some automation to go make this happen. Ableton Live has a good tutorial that shows you how to do automation. You can go select the device you want, and device on or device off, and you want to have it only be on for the parts that you actually want to have a high-pass filter during. You can see here, this is, so you don't have a high-pass filter, then you have a high-pass filter during the parts you want. Well, almost. Make sure that you adjust it so that it actually works. There you go. Now for this part, since right here there's drums on the other track, we want to get some of the snare noises in, so you can right-click on the frequency for the filter and choose Add New Automation Lane. Then you'll be able to adjust the frequency of the filter to let a bit more of the lower frequencies come in so that it actually sounds like the drums are coming in. Or you can also do this, have a really cheesy filter sweep. Yeah, I can feel my arteries clogging. So instead I decided to just have the frequency drop down on the measure change, just instantly or a bit gradually. You can see here, yeah, there we go, snares kick in. So at this part I realized the outro of Airbrushed doesn't have any drums. It's sort of got a filter sweep going on, and I figure it'd be nice if Space Jam had a similar filter sweep going on. It was sort of like that, it was sort of like a low-pass filter here, I believe. So you can do the reverse of the high-pass filter, the low-pass filter, as you can see right there. Basically, same idea, just goes in the other direction, only lets frequencies below a certain point get added into the mix. Just like we did with the high-pass filter, you only want to have it be active during a certain part, so have the device on automation only be active for the specific part that you want it on. Then we can go add automation for the frequency, and we can do that cheesy thing where you go from the high to the really low part. It's going to be less cheesy here because it's sort of got the same thing going on in the other part. It's kind of cheesy, but since we have other things going on and it's not just the entire song getting... it's going to sound pretty decent. So it's a halfway decent output. You can see the effects of the automation on the low-pass frequency down below. Little tip, if you want to have a song of a fade out, use the fade option under automation, and that'll kind of help if things kind of go on a bit too long for your liking. And then finally, you want to listen to your entire slam all over again and make sure that it sounds just about as good as you want to. SAMPLEJAMMER recommends that you go make a sandwich at this point, listen to something that's not Space Jam, then come back with clean ears, do the final touches, and see what you can do. When you're satisfied with your mix, you can go export it. The default Ableton Live settings are fine. Go export it to a WAV, then go convert it to an MP3 using foobar and Lame. Pro tip, Lame BBR V0 is the best format. So anyway, that's been the tutorial. That is how you make Space Jam go with another song using Ableton Live. If you've got any questions, I guess you could leave comments or something. I don't usually do this tutorial thing. This channel is sort of dedicated to making League of Legends montages to ridiculous music or whatever the heck. I don't even remember. I guess, like and subscribe? Whatever. Catch you later.